So let me go ahead and play for you guys, Brian, a couple of the responses here. Let me go ahead and start with a portion of Brian Tyler Cohen's response, which I also have to say, I found these responses to honestly be kind of shocking in how dishonest they were, how frankly, like Trumpian they were in their character. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Who's been saying that from jump? I've been dying on that hill, baby. Krystal's joined the brigade. Let's go.
The vanguard will be there, sir.
Let's definitely take a look here because luckily Krystal and Saagar came in clutch this morning with an absolute banger.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Shout out to the good people of Breaking Points. And, you know, I had read the article. We'd done multiple debates. We'd covered it extensively. But there is just something about how Krystal Ball breaks it all down for you that I was really excited to hear about this morning.
Oh, yeah, she does a great job.
I am a little bit obsessed with it. So Taylor Lorenz over at Wired Magazine really breaking some significant news here about an incubator program funded by a Dem-aligned dark money super PAC called the 1630 Fund. So let's put her reporting up on the screen, and I want to break down very specifically what she reports out in this piece. So her headline here is, a dark money group is secretly funding high-profile Democratic influencers. An initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influencers up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. All they have to do is keep it secret and agree to restrictions on their content. So the TLDR here is that this incubator named Chorus was set up by Brian Tyler Cohen, who you guys probably know is a big like resistance creator on YouTube, giant channel, 4 million subscribers, etc. And a guy who used to be an aide for John Yarmouth, who was a congressman from Kentucky. So they set up this thing. And the way they fund it is by taking money from this billionaire-backed dark money super PAC called the 1630 Fund. That fund has spent hundreds of millions of dollars to back Democratic candidates and causes. It's very influential. It's very well known. You can read a bunch of reporting about it. But because it is a dark money group, their donors are kept a secret. Okay. So 90 plus Democratic Party aligned influencers were selected for this program. They're paid anywhere from $250 a month, which like y'all are really selling out for the cheap if you're on that plan, but we'll get back to that, all the way up to $8,000 a month. It has everybody from small creators I certainly had never heard of. Granted, I'm not on TikTok that much, so I'm not trying to like besmirch the level of their influence, but all the way up to people like David Pakman, who has a multi-million sub channel, who is already been quite successful and has been around for longer actually than we have. David Pakman's been in this game for a long time. So it's like everybody from the small and the brand new all the way up to the David Pakmans of the world. So specifically, Taylor was able to talk to people who were approached about participating in this program, some of whom were put off by the terms of the contract and said, this is not something that I can be a part of. She was given access to some of the group chats that were flying around between some of the people who did end up in the cohort, who were also expressing concerns about some of the terms of the contract. And she also apparently was able to get her hands on the contract themselves. And so here's specifically what the contracts that is.
And this is really important because a lot of people are omitting this from their responses. Taylor Lorenz and the editors at Wired have seen the damn contract, right? So what happened is they said, hey, we're not going to publish these documents because they're private, right? But what we're doing is we're saying we have them and we are writing our piece with that information in mind. We have the receipts to back it up, but we're not going to include it because of the other, redacted information, which is on there. Krystal's going to read all of the allegations that are in this fucking contract. And if Brian Tyler Cohen wanted this to all go away, he could himself publish a redacted contract and say, oh no, this is all a lie. This is what the contract looked like. But it's very telling that they have not done that.
100%.
As reviewed by Wired, what they indicated in terms of restrictions on the way these individuals can operate. So according to copies of the contract viewed by Wired, creators in the program must funnel all bookings with lawmakers and political leaders through Chorus. Creators also have to loop Chorus in on any independently organized engagement with government officials or political leaders. So one of the creators who was approached about participating in Chorus said to Taylor, she said, quote, "If I want to work with another politician, I have to fully collaborate with Chorus. If I get Zora on and he wants to do an interview with me, I don't want to give that to them." So that was one of the concerns. Also, it says creators in the program are not allowed to use any funds or resources that they receive as part of the program to make content that supports or opposes any political candidate or campaign without express authorization from Chorus in advance and in writing per the contract. So if they want
That's insane. That's insane. If you take this money, you cannot criticize a politician without the approval of Chorus. Okay, let's hear that one more time. That's absolutely batshit crazy.
content that supports or opposes any political candidate or campaign without express authorization from Chorus in advance and in writing per the contract. So if they want to support a candidate, Graham Plattner, let's say in Maine, they have to get approval from Chorus before they can say anything supportive of any sort of candidate or campaign. In addition, the contracts reviewed by Wired prohibit standard partnership disclosures, declaring that creators will not publicize their relationship with Chorus or tell others that they're members of the program, quote, without Chorus's prior express consent. A screenshot from a slideshow was shared with Wired following this article's publication by Graham Wilson, a lawyer working with Chorus, that offers several talking points if a member of the cohort wanted to discuss Chorus publicly. So they're expressly saying you can't talk about being in this program.
Real quick, I'm trying to find the video itself for us to watch later, but as Krystal references on Twitter here, one of these Chorus cohort members that put out a video trying to debunk the Taylor Lorenz article, and it showed in the background of their TikTok video parts of the contract, but the parts they were showing actually totally confirmed Taylor's reported. I forget whose stream it was, but I was watching someone cover exactly this, and they're like, wait, what? Like, if you literally pause the video, you can see that what's behind her on screen proves Taylor's reporting correct. So even though that full contract hasn't been leaked yet, I'm assuming at some point it will be, everything we've seen from it totally vindicates Taylor Lorenz, and there's no fucking proof so far that any of it's actually been debunked. People have like taken issue with maybe some of the wording, or like, oh, I didn't like what this implied, or some stupid shit.
Yeah, editorial decision.
But that's just fucking writing. Like,
Yeah.
Sorry that a fucking robot didn't write the article.
Exactly.
You know, like, sorry she's a human being
With voice.
with a voice. Yeah, like that's the only even remote, issue anyone can actually pinpoint, but none of the specific claims have been debunked whatsoever. And what we've seen from the contract backs her up.
100%. And not only that, we know, right, that contract was already supplied to Wired, right? So when Wired is looking at all these people, say, you need to run a retraction. You don't have the ability to publish that. They're looking at a fucking contract that they have that, and they know they can provide as evidence to prove everything that they're fucking saying, right? So that's one thing. Two, I'm pretty sure that lady went and fucking deleted the posting. So you might find it, but I also looked for that before we went live. It was everywhere 2 days ago, and now it's nowhere. So convenient. Now it's just Destiny tweeting out about how fucking the MAGA communist left wing is out doing a smear campaign against everyone that's actually based in good and takes the money I give them.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's crazy how Destiny is defending all these people. Like, if I was part of the Chorus cohort, I'd be like, Destiny, shut up. Stop defending us. Like, we do not want to be associated with you. But I haven't seen that from any of them. They seem to all welcome his defense. But yeah, imagine you got exposed for taking 10 grand, almost 10 grand in dark money a month. And then the number one, the guy who's most well known for being a pedophile Zionist, is your loudest defender.
Yeah, it's also funny.
Couldn't be me.
And certainly can't disclose the dark money funding of this program. They also forbid creators from disclosing the identity of any funder and give Chorus the ability to force creators to remove or correct content based solely on the organization's discretion if that content was made at a Chorus organized event. One other piece that I thought was really noteworthy, Saagar, is it also says you are not allowed to criticize any of the other influencers who are part of the Chorus program. So, for example, if you have a beef over David Pakman, either not saying anything about Gaza, or in the early days of the genocide, he was actively defending Israel.
Yeah, he said Hamas bombed their own hospitals. Okay, he criticized anybody that donated money to Palestinian relief and said they were funding terrorists. Okay, that's the kind of propaganda. That's the kind of disgusting Zionist talking points David Pakman was feeding his audience in the aftermath of October 7th.
And it would have been literally violation of their contract to speak out against that, to speak out against one of the most prominent so-called progressives on YouTube, manufacturing consent for genocide and victim blaming the fucking the subjects of Israel's genocide.
Yeah, great point.
If you have a problem with that and you're an influencer in this cohort and you want to talk about it, you are banned from doing that. So you have a combination of a lot of restrictions on the way that you operate, having to run things through this chorus program. You have the forced secrecy around it, that you're not allowed to disclose chorus, and you're certainly not allowed to disclose the funding source of chorus. And then you also, on top of that, have these requirements that they check in, that they go to these daily messaging meetings to, get the view of chorus. And we're going to show you some of the responses from the creators themselves about the revelation that they're part of this program. And, they actually affirm that, yes, much of this is in fact true. They show relevant parts of the contract and then, give reasons why it's not such a big deal and it's not really a problem.
Too. Once a fucking day check-ins. You hear that shit? That's crazy. No wonder they call it incubation. You know what I'm saying? Like Brian Tyler Cohen is literally like your fucking dad. You have to check in with him once a day and get your fucking talking points like a baby bird. He's going to vomit up fucking garbage into your mouth that you have to regurgitate to your audience. Like what?
And the term incubator, right? Let's unpack that, right? You guys might know that in my limited career that I had before I did the Vanguard was in the tech world, right? I worked for a venture capital firm and then I got hired by a startup that then got purchased by Vista Equity and, moved to San Diego, and I quit and did this for a living, right? TLDR. But one of the things that is really, really big in startup world is this concept of an incubator, right? And it all goes back to the most famous incubator, which is called Y Combinator. Okay. And a bunch of famous startups that all became, unicorns or billion-dollar companies went through Y Combinator, right? And it's this idea where they're going to teach you how to succeed in the world of startups, right? And what Brian Tyler Cohen wants to do is he wants to teach you how to succeed in the land of corporate media online, right? So he's not interested in having you develop your own sense of self, right? The incubator is designed to teach you how to do something a certain way. It is conditioning. It is grooming in the truest sense of the term, right? It is manicuring you to be able to behave in a certain way that you will be able to succeed in this preset system, right? It is never about changing the game. It's never about disruption. Your disruption is your theme of your show, right? We're disrupting Republicans, right? So we're all disruptors, but you're not supposed to disrupt what the incubation is telling you, right? Like it's the same thing. It goes back to those startups. They're not actually about innovation. They're about skirting regulation, right? They're all about disrupting industries that are really regulated by, basically just ignoring any regulation, et cetera, getting around union negotiations, these kinds of things. That's what they're trying to teach you to do with chorus, right? They're trying to teach you like, hey, here is how you can get in the Midas touch algorithm. Here's how you can say, oh my God, shock, MAGA, bad, cringe, Dems, destroy, and get in the algorithm, right? That's what they're teaching you how to do. And they're telling you that in order to do that, you're never allowed to criticize anybody else that's in the incubator. That's just creating sheep. That's just creating propaganda for the Democratic Party.
Yep, 100%. And I have seen some people, to be fair, say, yeah, that's the point. We do need propaganda to counter right-wing propaganda. There's so much right-wing propaganda that this is like necessary or whatever. And if you want to defend it on those grounds, if you want to be like, I like propaganda and what the world needs more of is propaganda, then like if that's your line, at least you're being honest. At least you're being honest. Honestly, that's what most of these fucking idiots should say in defense of themselves, right? That, yeah, I am a propagandist, and I think that that's what the world needs is more propaganda, because that's what it fucking is. But as someone who started watching YouTube as an alternative to propaganda, as an alternative to the corporate finance, dark money financed fucking cable news media and propaganda media that's, the status quo, no, I actually don't want to see the space turned into that. And I actually do have a fucking principled aversion to propaganda, especially when it comes to political content. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
And if people were actually proud of this, if people were, like, oh, I actually don't care that people know I'm a paid propagandist, right? If the chorus folks were like, we don't have anything to hide. Why did you put it in fucking writing that they couldn't disclose this money? Because you wanted to make it seem organic. You wanted to give the appearance that these were their genuine, untainted beliefs, that they were not manicured, that they simply were in harmony with all these other creators, and that there was no difference in their politics, and that it was all, linking arms and singing Kumbaya, right? You wanted to create a facade, right? A mirage that all of these people have come together and decided to peddle your line of their own volition. That is fucking incorrect. That is against all journalistic standards, right? To be funded by dark money and then not say it. And if you were proud of it, you would have come out and said it, right? But you weren't. You were ashamed. You knew how bad it looked. And that's why you're lying about it now. Like, that is the reality of the situation. And everybody who is just shrugging it off because they like Brian Tyler Cohen's show and they don't want to feel bad when they watch it, or, oh, I like David Pakman's show, and, oh, guys, can't we just please stop fighting? What you are doing is the same thing that the Republican Party did when Donald Trump first came onto the scene. It's saying like, oh, guys, like, I know this guy's lying. I know he's calling everything fake news. I know that he can't substantiate any of his claims. I know that he's trying to litigate people so that they can, no longer publish good journalism about him, all these kinds of things, but we can't disrupt the Republican Party, right? And that's what people who are on the Blue MAGA want to do. The Blue MAGA wants to have total corporate control over the Democratic movement. They want to stomp out any voice of the electorate. They want to have a unified party line that comes from the top down, not the bottom up. Okay, so that is 100% the opposite of what would create a thriving, winning Democratic Party, and we can't relent to that.
Yep. And also, covertly in the background, they're building a fucking clone army. That's what this is, guys. You ever seen Attack of the Clones? You know how covertly Emperor Palpatine is ordering the construction of a fucking drone army that'll be ready right when he needs it? Well, right when the Democratic establishment is going to need this army of fucking NPC drones is 2028, and it's going to be used to crush the momentum of, the next Bernie, the next Zoran, the next Rashida Tlaib, maybe one of those people themselves if they decide to run. Zoran can't, unfortunately. But you don't think they're going to hit the activate switch on all these drones? You don't think we're going to have to be battling this fucking clone army when shit hits the fan and we're actually trying to get a serious, populist people's progressive in the fucking White House to take over the Democratic Party again? Like, no, that's exactly what the fuck is going on.
Great point.
But they actually confirmed Taylor's reporting here, so this seems pretty rock solid at this point.
Well, okay, so let's put that aside. I think the question is about why is this important? I think it's important not only for the context of what you laid out about specific issues, but it is an incentive and media ecosystem, which is so much worse than allegedly what the Dem and Republican alternative medias were trying to go after. Like, look, we can say a lot of bad things about Jake Tapper, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. They do not get direct checks cut to them that specifically say you can't criticize X, Y, and Z. They are actually less controlled in this particular way. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I think I wanted to cover.
And that's crazy, right? That's so crazy because I think it's true. This new wave of phony, independent podcasters or YouTubers who are coming out here and they're peddling this party line where they're in direct correspondence with the DNC, they're in direct correspondence with Chorus, whomever it is. There is no degree of separation for any of these people, right? And they're doing it covertly. So it's not like, oh, hey, I'm going to the Democrats' YouTube page and they're promoting these people who are here to advocate on behalf of the Democrats, right? I'm going to somebody who I think is Joe Schmo like Gavin or Saagar or Krystal or whoever, and instead they're reading me the party line from the Democratic Party because they're paid to and they're not disclosing it. At least when I sign up for corporate media, I know what I'm getting is corporate.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a great point.
Story early, and I want people to grapple with that, is that in this new ecosystem, just like in the original days of the printing press, it's gone wild. The norms don't exist. Mm-hmm. Everybody is a creator and a business person. They have not had well-established norms to try and create a firewall, a separation. Probably the most important is nobody is thinking about the downstream consequences of that. Because originally you're like, oh, a couple $1,000 a month, great. I can pay my bills. I can do this. I don't have to have a second job and all that. But you don't ask what comes next. And, two people who've been in this industry now for a long time and experienced much of the downside of what that type of stuff looked like. Now, to be clear, I've never taken a single dollar from a Republican group or any of that type of stuff in the same way.
Even Saagar wouldn't do this shit, guys. He's like, oh, let me be clear. I've never done any of that shady shit. This is Saagar Enjeti has more of a moral compass on this issue than David Pakman or Brian Tyler Cohen. He's a capitalist. He's a fucking rah, rah, rah. I love getting rich. But even he's like, well, that's shady and fucking bad form and gross. I wouldn't do that. I've never done that in his whole life.
Which, again, I don't really know how you ever thought it was cool. Because even when I was absolutely broke, I never would have signed some sort of contract.
Exactly. Do you know how many times I've come out here and said Saagar's an immoral prick? Okay, but he has a line in the sand where he's like, yo, that's gross. Dude, Gavin and I have been broke as fuck, okay? We have been just damn broke. And we had a fucking lease that we just signed, and we were like, holy shit, we are writing this the fuck out. Never, ever, ever would I have taken Democrat money. I would have fucking starved.
Yeah, crazy.
So there's all these separate, issues and incentive structures that come with them. So don't get me wrong, that obviously exists in the mainstream media, and I still hate them for a variety of reasons. But this is really, really bad. And it is bad because I think that the Democrats in particular, I know that there are a lot of Dems, they're energized, they're ready. We're going to talk about Trump health. Everybody wants to be online, having fun, and resisting. But you're being part of a machine. And that machine is being controlled for very specific purposes and ends, which you may not be aware of. That's what I think is very important.
Right. And it would be one thing if this was disclosed.
Yeah, that's right.
But what they say is, oh, well, here are some videos where people did talk about being in chorus, and here's a chorus website, and it lists some of the creators who were participating in the program. So there was some disclosure. Was there disclosure around a dark money?
Including a content creator that had nothing to do with them, Kat Abu Ghazala, right? They used her likeness, and she had to reach out to them and be like, I'm running for fucking Congress, dude. Do not put my face on this shit. We have nothing to do with one another, okay? Don't use my likeness. And you want to consider this some sort of like trustworthy, credible source of information? Are you kidding me?
Super PAC funding this? No, there was not. And so there's a reason why Taylor had to do an investigative journalism piece in order to reveal the details of this program. It expressly prohibits them in the contract from disclosing their funders, specifically from disclosing their participation in the program. And, in terms of like the ethics of all of this, that is almost the biggest red line here, because listen, it's very complicated, all of the different business structures within quote unquote independent media, right? Most places are different from us. Most of them will do ad reads, which means they're directly talking to advertisers. Actually, much more direct relationship than, like, for example, when I was at MSNBC, there was a firewall, the host and the, people who were selling ads. You had no idea what was on during the commercial break. That wasn't your bit, you were not paying attention to that. That had no bearing on your like day to day. So, there's that, but at least that's up front. Everybody knows I'm paid to read this ad for Casper mattresses or whatever the heck it is, Zins or whatever thing that they're selling. So that's up front. And, frankly, those corporate interests are going to only collide with your coverage in sort of certain specific instances. Whereas if you are backed by this kind of group where you're going to daily messaging check-ins, you're having to run by them, you're supposed to run by them, every government official that you interview, and you have other restrictions on your content. And they have they mention in one of these contracts that actually in the response video, one of the members of the cohort put up a part of the contract, and it referred to Chorus's policy platform. So like, what is that? And are you having to buy into a certain set of policies? I'm going to guarantee you that based on the lack of coverage of Gaza by Brian Tyler Cohen, and sometimes at times the incredibly terrible coverage of David Pakman, two of the biggest creators.
She's being polite. The often tragically misinformed and devastatingly terrible coverage by David Pakman.
That are associated with this. I'm going to bet that, the fact that, for example, Gaza has been officially deemed a genocide by all of the world's genocide scholars, I'm going to bet that's not part of the policy platform. I'm going to bet that's not.
And also one more thing, sorry to interrupt Krystal while she's spitting, but the reality is all of the evidence that they're putting forth from Chorus contributors that are like, see, they are talking about Gaza. See, they are being critical. They were not doing that when Joe Biden was the fucking president. Okay. They were not doing that when Joe Biden was the nominee for the presidential candidacy of the Democratic Party, right? He was up for re-election, and it was all like, oh my gosh, rah, Joe Biden, he's so progressive. Look at all the bills he passed. Look at how he's actually with it. And all of the people who are saying otherwise are just spreading MAGA propaganda, right? That's what they were all saying. They were not out here doing coverage of Gaza. And if they were, it was to cheerlead Joe Biden and create misinformation about the Palestinian struggle and the reality of the on-the-ground life for people there, right? So that's what was happening. I challenge any of you to find me a piece from May of 2024 calling Joe Biden a genocidal war criminal.
Yeah, the only people that were making content like that were people like Hassan, who got kicked out of the DNC, while these Chorus cohort losers were inside the fucking DNC cheering for fucking Liz Cheney.
Yep, we were not invited in the DNC. We were outside, though, outside protesting with the real people of Chicago. And if they'd have listened to us demanding a free Palestine and ending a fucking supply chain of weapons to a country that was doing an ethnic cleansing, Kamala Harris likely would have won.
Part of the daily messaging guidance. And I want to be clear because some of the way this has been portrayed, especially in the rebuttals, has been very caricaturish. We're not saying that they're being told, you're going to do a video on this. And if you don't, you're kicked out of the program. And here's your talking points. And you're going to say these freaking talking points or you're out. It doesn't work like that. It works through several mechanisms. First of all, the choice of who participates. I guarantee you many of these people, they genuinely their authentic view is that the Democratic Party is like, vote blue no matter who. They are vastly superior. The focus should all be on Trump. Like for many, if not all of them, that is their genuine view. So number one is the choice of who you even include in the cohort. But then there's all these sort of like human pressures and incentives. You see who's in the in-group with you. You see the sort of topics that are being pushed. You know where the sensitivities are. And so if you're covering, let's say, the Gaza genocide versus another topic that is also very important, that isn't going to create some sort of discomfort with the with the program that you're in, that you're receiving monthly cash from, maybe you're going to choose the one that's not going to be uncomfortable for the.
And not only that, you wouldn't be allowed to use any other content creators as framing for how people are getting it wrong. You wouldn't be able to engage in any sort of media critique because everybody else in your cohort paid by Chorus is going to be following the party line and disagreeing with you. And part of what you agreed to when you take that money is not to criticize anyone else or any politicians in the Democratic Party without permission, which is insane to do. Insane to do. I would never do that. Are you fucking kidding me? You're not independent if you do that.
Yep. And it's even stupid that Krystal has to explain this to everyone like they're children, because everyone fucking understands what she's talking about. All these people, yeah, she was 100% right to say they're caricaturing the response and they're gaslighting you. Everyone fucking knows the kind of soft power and the sort of corruption that's being alleged here. And they want to respond with, well, they're not literally fucking telling us exactly what to say with a paycheck attached to it. So I guess it's a smear. It's like, no, you're just fucking gaslighting everyone.
Yep, 100%.
Group, not going to be uncomfortable for your future potential prospects of staying in this program. And as you get down the line, if these influencers become financially dependent on getting this monthly stipend, then you have a lot of control over them. So that's the way these things work. It's far more subtle than just like you're getting your talking points and you're going to stick to them and you're not going to do videos on this and you are going to do videos on that. It happens in a much more subtle way. And I saw it, I've told this story before, just to give an example from my own personal life and why, like the lessons we've had to learn through our careers and how we came to the business model that we have. When I was at MSNBC, this was back in 2015 before Hillary, actually, I think it was 2014, before Hillary officially got in the race for president. I did a monologue that was like, don't run. Please don't run because you are not the person for the moment. I talked about her, her speeches to banks.
And talk about prescient, right? I mean, think about even if it wasn't Bernie Sanders, right? Because in 2014, people were not talking about Bernie Sanders. This is when Krystal gave that monologue, right? Bernie Sanders was like kind of a last resort. I don't even think Bernie Sanders knew he was going to do it until 2015, probably, right? When he finally made up his mind and
when he realized that literally no one else was going to, he was like, I guess I'm going to have to do this because literally no one other than Martin O'Malley is going to.
Said this is not the populist champion we need. It was very critical at a time when nobody on the Democratic side, nobody on MSNBC was being critical of Hillary. They let me do it. But after the fact, I was informed that any future commentary I did on Hillary Clinton had to be run by the president of the network. Okay.
Which means don't fucking do any more Hillary Clinton monologues.
Is not a normal thing. Message was sent to me that this was not appreciated. And in the future, I needed to make sure I run it up the flagpole. So can I say for certain that didn't impact my coverage going forward, that didn't make it so that if I was weighing two different monologue topics, I was like, well, I could do this one on Hillary again, or I could do this other topic, that I didn't take the easy way out and say, well, they're both important. So let me do this one so I don't have to actually get all of my words approved by the president of the network and piss off everybody involved this day. That's the way these things work, through these sort of subtle influences and pressures that every human is subject to. And so I think a lot of these individuals, they feel like, well, we're not corrupt. We genuinely believe in the Democratic Party. And, we got to fight fire with fire. We got to get in there and we got to fight against Trump. And we got to build up this creator ecosystem.
And this is what a lot of people say, right? And what it really comes down to is the fact that This is a horrible strategy. It's a horrible strategy to just, oh, we're going to be the corporate party too, right? Because that's what Hillary Clinton tried to do. And that's what Joe Biden tried to do. And what did both of those people do? They lost to Donald Trump and put our country in severe jeopardy. Okay. So we don't want to do that again. Maybe we shouldn't, try and model our future media apparatus off of the old one, which kept fucking us in the ass.
System. Like, I think that's the way they're thinking about it without realizing the subtle way that your coverage can be shaped and influenced the minute that you start taking cash. And especially when you have these sorts of very specific restrictions on the way you're supposed to go about your content creation, and you're required to go to a daily messaging check-in every single day. Of course, that's going to impact the way that you approach things, not because you're like,
I'm sorry, but yeah, can you imagine somebody looking at your face and being like, your daily media check-ins, they don't have any impact on me. That's not to tell anybody what to say or control their coverage. It's just a daily media check-in. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Inherently corrupt because you're a human being, and we are all subject to those sorts of incentives and pressures, whether we even realize it or not.
I will just quote the great Noam Chomsky, quote, "The smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum, even encourage the more critical and distant views."
We were just joking about, Saagar going full commie. Now he's quoting Noam Chomsky. What's going on, bro? Are we witnessing the birth of something here?
What's going on in the world right now. So let me go ahead and play for you guys, Brian, a couple of the responses here. Let me go ahead and start with a portion of Brian Tyler Cohen's response, which I also have to say, I found these responses to honestly be kind of shocking in how dishonest they were, how frankly, like, Trumpian they were in their character. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Who's been saying that from jump? I've been dying on that hill, baby. Krystal's joined the brigade. Let's go. She's joined the chorus of people calling it very Trumpian.
Yeah. Now, if anyone wants $8,000 to agree with everything we say and join our cohort, you can submit an application at my Instagram DMs, and we'll consider you to join the chorus over here.
Tyler Cohen, who again is one of the co-founders of Chorus, so he is actually like at the head of this thing.
So here's what Chorus is. It is a scholarship program to teach creators how to grow their accounts, foster engagement, launch their own shows, and become profitable on their own. It's an incubator program to build the pro-democracy ecosystem. Influencers and creators have never been more important when it comes to how Americans are consuming their news. The right has been doing this for years, and the left needs to catch up. That's why we're doing this with Chorus. So let's talk about what Chorus is and what it's not. Chorus does not pay creators for content, does not tell them what to say, it does not control who they talk to or work with, and there is absolutely nothing in the contract that could even be reasonably interpreted to say that we do. Period. Full stop.
And it's also crazy for him to just lie like that. He said that there's no way that you could interpret our contract that we tell content creators what to say. You tell them what not to say, bro. You tell them that they cannot interview politicians without clearing it with you first. What the fuck would you call that? I think that's the interpretation I have, and it's clear and reasonable.
Yep. A single creator who would willfully sign up for a program that would tell them what they can or can't say. That's not what this program is. We pay people to show up to workshops and technical trainings to optimize their content online. For example, we've got trainings on how to package content.
Anytime you say optimize, like interconnective linkativity,
he's talking like a fucking shareholder or something, or like some like venture capitalist.
And for YouTube, trainings on how to optimize audience retention for Instagram and TikTok, trainings on how to form an LLC. There's the implication in the article that this is some arm of the DNC or the Democratic Party. We have literally nothing to do with the DNC. I spend zero thinking about the DNC. The creators do not toe any party line. How could we? There isn't a party line. Creators are absolutely allowed to speak out against the Democrats, and in fact, plenty do. And frankly, Chorus creators should and do criticize Democrats when they suck. And quite often, they do suck.
In the contract, they literally have to reach out to you first and get approval before they can criticize someone and say they suck.
And by the way, that one, what was it, Too Raw, Too Real, that one TikTok kind of dude, I think he's mainly on TikTok. In his response to this, article, he was like, I do criticize Democrats. And then he played like a video of him briefly shitting on Chuck Schumer, like from 6 months ago. And it's like, that's no different than when Cenk Uygur got a bunch of Republicans to like boo for fucking
Mitch McConnell.
It's like, yeah, obviously when Chuck Schumer is like just rolling over, obviously even the most shit-lib Democrats are going to be like, boo. But that's not the same thing as what we're talking about. Obviously, come on.
1630 Fund is our fiscal sponsor. One of the largest documented donors to 1630 Fund is the same person funding Meteor's Reporters in Residence program, which Taylor Lorenz herself is a part of. And guess what her monthly stipend is? $8,000 per month. So
Oh, that's a lie also.
she's
Oh, and by the
criticized.
way, Zach, do you think this is a good time
Great time.
a great time to make the announcement that tomorrow, assuming, everything, things change, but currently we have scheduled Taylor Lorenz to come on the show tomorrow, 2 p.m. Central, to discuss this whole debacle and respond directly to that line of bullshit, the smear that you just heard from Brian Tyler Cohen. So everyone make sure to subscribe to the channel because, again, we currently have scheduled Taylor Lorenz to come on tomorrow. Super excited for a 45-minute interview. It's gonna be a blockbuster, guys. So you're gonna want to be here.
Yeah, very excited for that. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell. 2 p.m. tomorrow, Central Standard Time. Be there, be square.
Yep.
An entity that is funded by someone that she is currently taking money from. I guess it's okay when Taylor Lorenz gets paid, but no one else. There are people like Taylor Lorenz who are desperate to tear the left apart. And in fact, it becomes clear who her efforts help when you hear stuff like this.
Genuinely, I kind of like Taylor Lorenz because I know that she actually believes what she says. Do you get what I'm saying?
So yeah, I generally don't align myself with friends of Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens.
Wow, a 3-second clip is supposed to convince me, you fucking twat.
Calling Taylor Lorenz a friend of Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens is wild. Wild. And he opens up this thing. It was kind of long, so we clipped it up and didn't play the whole thing. We wanted to give you the pieces where he's doing his best defense, whatever, to be fair to him. But he opens up the whole thing by being like, at the risk of giving more attention to an internet troll. You can say a lot of things about Taylor Lorenz, but this is a fully reported piece in Wired magazine. He also spends a lot of time doing this person online said this thing about it, which is totally untrue. And it's like, okay, but you don't actually deal with the very specific claims that she makes in her report about the requirement of non-disclosure, about the fact that they're contractually required to run all of the guests that they book, all of the government official guests that they booked through you guys in this approved channel that you have to go to daily messaging meetings. You don't deal with any of that. Instead, you shift the focus to these internet claims that were untrue rather than the actual reported out pieces. I want to deal with the piece that he says here about Pierre Omidyar, which I think is important. And I think it would be fair to, question whether Taylor should be taking money from Pierre Omidyar. He has this reporter in residence training. But here's what's different. She was public about that, and we know who's funding her. And it's on the website, and she announced it. That is very different than a program that you're not allowed to say you're part of, and you're not allowed to disclose the funders, and you're supposed to keep it secret. And by the way, we still don't know who all is funding the 1630 fund. So I think it's fair. There could be criticism of Taylor there too. But to posture like these are the exact same things, that is just fundamentally dishonest. And he's smart enough to know that.
Well, and by the way, people can write a fucking article about the Pierre Omidyar thing too. I don't think Taylor Lorenz would freak out, threaten to sue that person, act like the guiltiest motherfucker on the entire planet in the process of trying to prove how innocent they are. She'd probably just be like, yeah, that's some context to my reporting. Here's my perspective on it. And that's the thing about these people's response to it. That's what really makes them look guiltier than anything. It's crazy that Brian Tyler Cohen didn't just see the article and be like, yep, that's true. That is what's happening. This is our model. We believe that we need to create propaganda on the left to counter the propaganda on the right. So that's why we pay these people and incubate them and do all this shit, right? That's the thing. The fact that they freaked out, are now threatening to sue her over revealing this fucking innocuous information. Like, that's what's crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Listen, we at the Vanguard have a very rigid, clear line in the sand that we draw where we take no funding from any outside sources. That is not really the model that you can expect everyone to replicate, right? We've talked about how there are a lot of good friends in the show, and they have, transparent funding models where they do take money from other people and it allows them to do reporting. I would put Taylor Lorenz and her Pierre Omidyar bankrolling in the same category as I would have put Ryan Graham when he was at The Intercept. Yep. It's a little bit different, right? Because one thing I really admire about The Intercept and how it was set up by Glenn and Laura Poitras and Jeremy Scahill and all the people that worked really hard when it was in its golden era, was that it was 100% transparent about the funding. Okay, you could see how much every single contributor was paid. So, by a lot of people's standards, like Glenn and Naomi Klein were getting paid fat, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, people like, I think Ryan Grimm was making like 300 grand, something like that. It was all public. You could go take a look at it, right? You could see who were the people that financed it. And yes, the dude that was giving the most money to it was Piero Midyar, right? First Look Media. All of that was 100% transparent. So you could be like, well, I don't really like The Intercept because I don't want to support any institution that's taking any money from billionaires. And that would be totally justified.
Lots of people said that.
Many people said that. And nobody at The Intercept came out and called them liars and fucking smear merchants and anything. They said, we believe very much in the journalism we're doing. We would not have the capacity for legal protections that a lot of our whistleblower exposés require. The fact that we're actively going to war with the government all the time. We have to have legal protections. We're as transparent as we can be, but we need this funding. And this is the only way that we can get it. We're a 501c3 or 4 or whatever the hell they were. And that was all public if you wanted to dig into it. This is not that, right? This is Brian Tyler Cohen intentionally misleading people about things, right? And that's very different from The Intercept, and that's very different from what Taylor's done with Piero Midyar's money. And Piero Midyar, I don't know much about him as a guy, but he has bankrolled a lot of genuinely good journalism that's come. And I think that's one thing that we have to say, right? Like,
it's actual journalism being funded, not clickbait slop that all looks the same and serves the exact same fucking purpose.
Exactly. Now, would I take money if Pierre calls me on the phone?
Hell yeah, buddy.
Like,
No, I'm just
he's like, Zach, that eBay money, it's just sitting around collecting dust, man. I don't know. You want a piece of that? I could change your life. You want to buy a yacht? You want to do all this stuff? Like, I don't know how much money he'd give us. But we would have to be like, no, hey, man, that's not our bag. But I'm not going to go out here and just start, smearing everyone that still works at The Intercept, right? I might be like, hey, this is context. Like, hey, this is one of the things that you might notice at The Intercept because of this. And you should employ basic media literacy skills to make sure that you're not being misdirected. If, you should always be aware of these things, right? Who is funding this? What kind of conflict of interest could be there? Yada, yada, yada. But to, compare what Taylor is doing and to compare what they're doing at The Intercept to this shady fucking chorus shit, it is just dishonest.
Yeah, it's completely dishonest. We can watch probably a couple more seconds of the Zach and then maybe move on to a few minutes of the David Pakman bullshit.
Sounds good.
There's a 4-year track record here of criticizing Taylor. I read the story. I don't take her word for it. I read the story. I make sure that it's sourced, and then I see the response.
Oh, by the way,
It seems
Saagar,
hold
sorry
up.
to keep.
I think that's really what it's all about.
Saagar hates Taylor Lorenz. So the fact that he's willing to give credit here and be like, yeah, this is actually a well-researched, properly investigated piece of journalism. Trust me, Saagar fucking hates Taylor Lorenz. Same with Glenn Greenwald. The fact that both of them are willing to be like, you know what, this is actually low-key inarguable, essentially, and this is something we deserve to know about. It's not some earth-shattering fucking piece of defamation or whatever to just like report on the existence of this shady dark money group. It says a lot.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
About. So this isn't about Taylor Lorenz. I'm no great big fan or any of that over here. I do think it was really dishonest to be like, well, Candace says, that Candace and Tucker say that Taylor believes what I actually agree with that is one thing. I mean, I don't like most of what Taylor believes, but I do think she actually believes
She genuinely believes it, yeah.
We can talk about that. It's kind of a different story. But the question here, and I think people are like, oh.
And 100%, Saagar has a great read on this. He's like, look, I mean, he doesn't agree with people on the left, right? But I know he would call her out for being a fucking corrupt, like conflict of interested individual if he, had that information. But the reality is that, Saagar might hate her guts or think that she's silly and stupid or whatever. But right here, she has the fucking nuts, man. She's got the bolts, and it's a good story.
Yep, 100%.
Is this ponderous? Why we're spending so much time? A lot of you guys are watching this stuff on the internet, and not enough people talk about the behind the scenes. So what you just talked about with MSNBC, talked a lot about here.
We can
our
probably move
experience
on
with
now
Hill.
whenever you're ready.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there.